Hey everyone, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Justin, and today is June the 19th. We are getting incredibly close to some very, very big dates coming up with the Toronto Maple Leafs. June 28th and 29th are the entry draft, and July 1st is, of course, NHL free agency, but that's also the date that Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner get their full no-move clauses, and William Nylander gets a 10-team trade, no trade list. So right now, it's, again, crunch time in terms of figuring out what is the future of this team and what are you going to do. If you're Brad Treliving, you've got a new, fresh pair of eyes. You've had a lot of decisions to make. It sounds like they're probably leaning towards sticking around with Sheldon Keefe and the current coaching staff. They've been having meetings with the players, trying to figure out what the vision is, what the future is with this team. But now's the time, if you're going to make a move, if you're going to make a dramatic change to the team, you got to do it within the next week, week and a half. June 28th and 29th being the entry draft. That's when all the GMs are in the same room, even though Treliving isn't allowed there. But that's when a lot of trade chatter and activity picks up. But you got to make a deal before July 1st because that's when the no-move clauses kick in. And that's when you lose all your leverage. So I've been on the record many times with my opinion. I think that the big four players, those being John Tavares, Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, I don't have any issues with the players. I love the players. I'm a big fan of all of them. We've had, I don't know how many years, 8 years, 7 years with that core together on this team. And I've, of course, fallen in love with them, as I'm sure many of you have as well. And I love the players and I believe in them as people, as players. I do. I believe that they can win together. What is the issue is the contract and the salary and how much it takes up in the salary cap. It just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. And I've been thinking about, what more could Brad Treliving come in and build this team around while keeping that core that's going to be significantly different than what Kyle Dubas had done in the past. Because in my opinion, Kyle Dubas had made very many different iterations around that core to help them succeed. And every year he did it, he made the team better. And still, nothing came from it. A second round, yes, one win. You went down 3-0 in that series. That's unacceptable. In fact, my opinion is that was more of a disappointment than anything because my philosophy was that the Toronto Maple Leafs had demons. It was all in their head. It was the first round. And once they got through that first round, they would have defeated the demons in their head. They would have mentally just flipped a switch and that team would have been incredibly difficult to beat. And I get it. Florida was a very good team. And they went to the finals, and they swept Carolina. It's not like I don't want to give Florida any respect, but for Toronto to finally win a series for the first time since 2004, and with this core finally having experienced some playoff success, to immediately lose 3 straight games, at which point you're out of the series. Only 4 times, I think, in history has a team come back from a 3-0 deficit in the playoffs. You lost a series in 3 straight games. You win 1 on the road, and you lose the series back in Toronto. To me, that was the moment where I was like, okay, it's not demons. It's not in their heads. It's nothing to do with the first round. This is entirely that this team isn't built to win. And again, not the players. I think that the players are capable of success. We saw Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner really step up and perform well in the first round. We saw William Nylander really step up in the second round. Tavares again in the first round. Morgan Rielly, if you want to throw him in that group, was a beast in both rounds. I thought he was incredible, probably our best player. So again, no issue with the player. Issues with building the team around the players. And with Kyle Dubas, his iterations were early on just picking up a lot of free agencies. His early days, there wasn't really much of an identity. He was still building out what he wanted to build this team around. Then he switched to going after a little bit more of a veteran presence. People that have been there, had not succeeded, people that wanted to succeed, that the group would rally around. People like Patrick Marleau, people like Nick Foligno, people like Joe Thornton. Those players ended up being somewhat of a liability. So that didn't work. So he pivoted. He got deeper. He went with players that he found for bargain deals in free agency, like David Kampf and Zach Aston Reese, and built the bottom 6 out of those key players that are on cheap deals and also brought in players that have had success. Think of Luke Shen. Think of Mark Giordano, although he hasn't won a cup, has had success in the league. And it didn't work. Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, right? He brought in players like that, and it still didn't work. So what can Brad Treliving possibly do leading into this season to make a dramatic enough change that would push this team over the edge? With the limited space that they have, I don't think it's possible. And with that, I came to the conclusion that it's time to move one of the core four. And it really sucks to say it. The only way I would be okay with the core four remaining intact is if Brad Treliving somehow gets through to them from a contractual perspective to take, I don't want to say a discount. I would never expect that Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Auston Matthews going into the primes of their career, going into what would be their unrestricted free agency days, where they could capitalize and take advantage of some massive money and take a discount. I'm not saying take a discount. I'm saying don't gouge the Leafs anymore, because quite frankly, that's what they did at every opportunity. And I would argue that the one player that didn't do that was Auston Matthews. But William Nylander, at the time, waited until they got a bigger contract. And so did Mitch Marner. And they ended up getting paid, and they got paid a lot of money. In fact, William Nylander's probably underpaid at this point. He's due for a raise. But how much of a raise is he going to argue for? Because he better not be asking for over market value. And at the point that they signed those contracts, the cap was expected to grow exponentially. It was at $81 million. And they were anticipating that pre-COVID, that the salary cap within the next 2 or 3 years was going up to $90 plus million. A massive, massive jump. And when the players signed their contracts, that was at a time that Auston Matthews didn't score 60 goals. Mitch Marner didn't have almost 100 points. William Nylander didn't even have the experience of being that playoff performer in the last few years. They signed their contracts based on projection of what these players are going to be, and projection of what the salary cap is going to be. So when Auston Matthews got paid $11.6 million, it would be at a time where in the next 3 years, most stars in the league will be in double digits. Same thing with Mitch Marner. That was going to be the reality. And then, unfortunately for the Leafs, they signed the most amount of players to these big new age contracts at a time where the salary cap suddenly stopped. That is not an issue that, I can't blame the Leafs for that. I can't even blame the players for that. Because again, given the climate of the salary cap and the projections of how it was going to grow, they were right where they should be. Even Mitch Marner, some people are adamant that he's overpaid. If the salary cap had grown how it was supposed to, Mitch Marner would not be an overpaid player. That being said, now there's the conversations of the salary cap going up, and these players are going to be asking for these massive raises because the cap is going to grow. It's only going to grow $1 million this year. But after that, there's projections that next season, it's going to grow maybe $4 or $5 million from there, and then $3 to $5 million every year thereafter. And that's fantastic. But when you sign that last contract, when Auston Matthews, William Nylander, and Mitch Marner all signed their last contracts, the cap was going to grow, and it didn't. So right now, we are in an identical spot of where we were when they signed those last deals. My expectation, you can say how wrong you think it is, but my expectation is you've already set your market value and you stick to it, because the climate, the environment, the projections, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed since you signed that last deal. Yes, you had more achievements since then, but that's because you've grown as a player. But that last deal was based on projections anyway. It wasn't based on your success prior. My expectation is Auston Matthews takes $11.634 million. My expectation is that William Nylander, Nylander is the exception where he deserves a raise and gets somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million. My expectation is Mitch Marner takes $10.9 million. and nothing more. They don't deserve anything more. And they will come back at you and say, well, the cap's going to grow and we'll be able to afford this and that. You haven't succeeded. You haven't done anything. You haven't even done anything on a personal level in the playoffs to warrant a promotion or a raise. Auston Matthews, you are the cornerstone player of this franchise, the face of this franchise, and you got 0 goals in 5 games. As a collective group, you are all forwards, this core 4. And you went 7 straight games in the playoffs with 2 goals, with many of those being goals from defensemen. Morgan Rielly probably put up more goals in elimination games than any of these core 4 members in the last 7 years. I'd be interested to see the stat. I think that's probably pretty accurate. You guys haven't proven anything on a personal level that would warrant a raise, and then you factor in the salary cap and how it's only going up $1 million. If you care to be here, if you care to win, this was the message that Brendan Shanahan sent Kyle Dubas. There was the potential that this player or this person, Kyle Dubas, didn't want to be the GM of the Leafs. There was that small part in his brain where there was a little bit of doubt, a little bit of hesitancy, where he couldn't fully commit to being here, wanting to be here, wanting to win. And in my eyes, if any of these players ask for a significant raise other than William Nylander on their next deals, that to me shows that they aren't fully invested in the team. And I don't have anything against them for that, because again, these are employees. These are people doing what they do for a living in a career that's way shorter than you or I. Your job is to make money, black or white, right? Your job is to make money. You work to make money. I know they play a game, but it is a job, and they want to get paid as much as they can. I have no fault for that, but you do it somewhere else. If you want to make money, fuck, Auston Matthews, go to free agency. You will make $15 or $16 million because there will be a team that pays you that much. So if you're looking for money over success, please go to free agency. If you are looking for success, then stay and take your proper market value. The only argument that I would be willing to listen to that I haven't heard anybody really talking about is, you know, we're sports fans. We look at it from a different perspective, but it's important to look at it as, I mean, sports are a business. There is a business element of it, and their job is to make money. I mean, 32 NHL franchises, only one of them wins the cup every year, but that doesn't mean the other 31 are going to just not care about how much money, how much revenue they're bringing into their system. Of course it matters. And that's what Brendan Shanahan's role is with the Toronto Maple Leafs. His role is to obviously want to make the Toronto Maple Leafs have success, and more success equals more money. But it's also to make sure that when he's talking to the board of directors and doing his reporting, he's in charge of, reporting the financials of the team. It's his responsibility to show that they are continuing to make money for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, just as any other team would do. And if you get rid of or let someone walk of the likes of Auston Matthews, of the likes of Mitch Marner, you are objectively, willingly bringing in way less money for the organization, because those two players alone are the faces of the franchise. They're on every billboard, every piece of media that comes out about the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are the ones that drive jersey sales. They are the ones that drive ticket sales. They are the ones that drive marketing, and they are the ones that bring in new partners. So from a business perspective, I can absolutely see Auston Matthews coming to the table and saying, look, I haven't achieved as much as you would have expected of me in the playoffs. That's the on-ice part. But from an off-ice perspective, I've brought in millions and millions and millions of dollars for this organization. And as long as you keep me here, you will continue to make millions of dollars off of my name. I'm Auston Matthews, and I'm going to sell $2.5 million of jersey sales, and I'm going to bring in new partners bringing in millions of dollars of revenue. And I want a piece of that. That is the only argument that I'd be willing to accept, where you say, okay, Auston, Yeah, you're right. You bring in a lot of money for this organization and you deserve a cut of it. Same thing with Mitch Marner. Too many people are focused on just the on-ice production. It's not just that. That's not what a business is based off of. It's obviously, again, the more success these players have, the more money the organization will make and the more money that the players will make over their career. The more partnerships that they'll bring in, more sponsors, more everything. So it's a catch-22. There's really two sides to this, but all that in saying, I've been rambling, all that in saying, from a team success perspective, if you are coming in from Brad Treliving's role, not Brendan Shanahan, people think that they should be the exact same priorities. They're not. Brendan Shanahan has the priority of making sure that the business operates at the most profitable it can. Brad Treliving doesn't care about that. His priority is making sure that he builds a team that's willing to win, that can win. From Treliving's perspective, I think you got to move one of the core four. I think you do. Who? I don't know because I'm not in that room. But if Auston Matthews, for instance, suggests that he's not 100% committed to staying with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that needs to be a commitment set before July 1st. Even though he can't sign a contract until July 1st, you need to have that verbal commitment that he is going to stay here. If he doesn't, you look at trading him within the next 2 weeks. Because once that no move kicks in, you lost all your leverage. You'll still get a lot, and a lot is better than nothing. But you want to maximize value, and I would absolutely looking at trading him if he weren't to commit to us long term. Same thing with William Nylander. I think that of the core four, William Nylander has shown that he's the best value contract, probably still going to be the best value contract on his next deal, and the best playoff performer. The guy that scored the goal to tie the game in the game that we eventually got eliminated in. But if he, again, wants to hold out and demand $10+ million, then sorry. We can look at moving him. And he's not as much of a priority because when July 1st kicks in, it's only a 10-team no-move clause. It's not a full no-move clause, so you do still have a decent amount of control over where he goes and taking the best deal. You don't lose too much leverage. Again, Mitch Marner, he's not due for a next contract for 2 years, but that no-move clause kicks in this year, not next year. So even though he's still got 2 years on his deal, if you can't get a commitment from him that he is willing and open to staying long-term with this team at the expiration of his next deal, and that he's not going to gouge you for every dollar he can, if he doesn't give you that commitment or suggest that commitment, you look at moving him. Because for far too long, we've been giving all the power, all the leverage for the players. We've bent over backwards. We've made sure that, they stay together, they stay happy. But as a recipe for success, if you want playoff success, I just don't think it can be done. Not with the cap. And again, if they were to commit to taking their same contracts or even a little bit less, then I'm all for it. It's 100% worth it to last the next 2 years with these four guys and have them all on new contracts in 2 years' time that are very palatable in a climate where the cap is increasing, and all of a sudden you've got really, really strong opportunity for success in 2, 3, 4 years. That's an investment in time in these players that is worth it. But if these guys are demanding more money, it can't be done. And I'm personally not open to it. It's not like I would boycott the team or anything if it doesn't happen. There's a lot of complexity to this that we as fans don't get to see, a lot of behind the scenes. So I would not fault anybody about the situation, no matter how it goes. But that's my perspective. I think you move one of the big four. And if you were to move one of the big four, my opinion, you get the cornerstone of that trade would be a very young player on an entry-level contract with massive upside. So you get a player that can contribute in your bottom six or even sneak into the top six at an entry-level contract for, let's say, 1, 2, or 3 more years at probably around $900,000. That now opens up a shit ton of salary cap that you can go out and spend in free agency, bring in someone like Tyler Bertuzzi or Dmitry Orlov or whoever you want to name. And then you've got a young player on your team that in a few years down the road is going to blossom into one of your new core players, one of your new stars. And if it doesn't work out with the other guys, you can move those guys and build a new team around that young guy. And it's like the most seamless rebuild of all time. You don't have that period of being terrible. You just readjust and reestablish yourselves around some new, younger core players. And you try again from there. That's my perspective. I don't know if that kind of player is available. I don't really have any off the top of my head. There's some around the league. I mean, if you're moving someone like the likes of Austin Matthews, you're going to get a very, very strong young player in return. So it's not out of question, but that's kind of my philosophy as I see it. So again, we're really running low on time here. I would imagine that some news starts coming out more and more every day. Just rumors about what the plan of attack is for Brad Treliving. Some rumors, especially as we head into June 28th. A lot of deals, I think, around the league on deadline day, considering there is going to be a small bump in the cap. Some teams are going to maneuver players a little bit better this year than they were in the last few with a flat cap. So a lot of movement coming, a lot of rumors coming. I look forward to hearing what is going to happen. I look forward to July 1st. I mean, I love free agency day. It's super, super exciting, but especially this year, there's just so much on the line for the Leafs. I need to know what they're going to do. I really have no idea. The rumor is that they're going to keep the core together, but I don't know, something tells me that something could flip a switch and in 24 hours, one of these players could be moved. We just don't know. So love to hear your thoughts though. What do you think about the core four, about plan of attack, about the deadlines here? Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you very, very soon when we hear some more news.